So today I'm going to be talking about fish farming, the importance of aquaculture production in the global food system. Now, before we get started, a lot of us should ponder about this question. And that question is essentially, does aquaculture add resiliency to our global food system? And we will talk about that here in just a few slides. So what is aquaculture? Aquaculture is a viable method that is used to produce food and other commercial products to restore habitat and replenish wild stocks and rebuild populations of threatened and endangered species, according to the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. It's essentially the breeding, rearing, and harvesting of fish, shellfish, algae, and other organisms in all types of water environments. There are essentially two types of aquaculture, and that is marine and freshwater. But for today, I'm going to be talking about marine aquaculture and how it adds resiliency to our global food system. I'm going to discuss some challenges associated with it, as well as some goals along with it, so that we can combat these issues for our global food system. So aquaculture is one of the fastest food growing sectors nationwide. Specifically in the United States, it's valued at $1.5 billion, according to the National Oceanic Administration. According to PNAS.org, in the article titled, "Does Aquaculture Add Resilience to the Global Food System?" author Max Trowell and his team state that more than 3 billion people obtain about a fifth or more of their animal protein from fish. And that fish is a primary protein source for households in 21 countries. Fish is an important commodity and accounts for about 17% of animal-derived and 6.5% of total protein consumption globally. Max Trowell and his team conduct research on how interconnections between the aquaculture, crop livestock, and fisheries sectors can essentially be an opportunity for enhanced resiliency in the global food system. So what I have here is a bar graph, and basically you can see that more people have purchased fish as their main protein source in comparison to all these other products, such as like chicken, pig, and cattle. You can also see that more people have bought fish, and it seems to be cheaper than everything else, surprisingly. So there are challenges with fish farming. So aquaculture production can severely degrade our aquatic ecosystems, potentially pose health risks, diminish food resources for low-income populations, and more. So sustainable farming techniques are very much needed in this, but with the farming techniques that we use today, unfortunately, has caused pollution to our marine aquatic fish habitats. Greenhouse gases have caused destruction of our marine habitats. Disease has been transferred, as well as parasites. Invasive species to marine environments have reduced fish populations, increased stress, depletion of wild fish populations from, other fish eating, predator-prey interactions, as well as overfishing. So, establishing policy guidelines that advance aquaculture's role in the resilience of global food system and simultaneously improving the environment and social conditions should become a priority for any country promoting aquaculture growth, especially when it competes with other food sectors for resources. Managing aquaculture for resilience essentially requires policymakers in concert with scientists in the industry to anticipate change and influence the direction of production and consumption in ways that can foster the health of human populations, ecosystems, and environmental quality now and in generations to come. So the goals of aquaculture should focus on building flexible and heterogeneous production systems that derive feeds from both food grade and non-food grade agricultural productions as efficiently and equitably as possible. Introducing diversity in aquaculture species would greatly help with resiliency in aquaculture production. Such a strategy requires the development of a diversity in aquaculture species, the promotion of co-products from the crop, livestock, and fishery sectors for feeds are needed. The design of infrastructure that uses renewable energy is needed, as well as the implementation of management practices that minimizes waste and environmental impacts. At the national scale, appropriate policy incentives, proper institutions, sound industry support will be needed for a flexible and resilient global food portfolio. If the aquaculture industry seeks to dominate the global market for animal protein, it should take a leading role in promoting this strategy of resilience. So I have here another graph. So you can see here that aquaculture has decreased. So therefore more people, it seems to also be cheapest here in comparison to all these other products that have been bought. And then I have another image basically showing like what feeds have been used the most in aquaculture. So we could see that soybean has been used the most out of all of these other feed types, canola, as well as maize, instead of like all these others. Soybean use seems to be the most abundant here. And this is another graph. It's basically that same image as the last one. So equity is an important social target, and inequality effects need to be identified and addressed through appropriate policies and policy instruments involving policies at both global and local regional scales, according to PNAS.org. I have learned for myself, that aquaculture has not been given as much attention as it should, and developing its potential would greatly benefit the global food system if we use sustainable practicing methods that can prevent runoff into our oceans, and practice using more sustainable farming practices. Grazing is another one that has also been an issue. If we can prevent that and find some other way to help our ecosystems, that would also benefit. And that is the end of my presentation.